Welcome back, everybody. I'm Sassy Pants, wife to Matty the rancher, and I'll be your storyteller today. Welcome to Adventures with Sodak Pete, stories that celebrate the hard work, big hearts, and wide open spaces of ranch life. Out here, every day's an adventure. We hope that each and every one of you listening can imagine yourself as little Sodak Pete, learning the ropes, getting your hands a little dirty, and helping out where you can. So grab your boots, tip your hat, and let's see what today's adventure has in store. Sodak Pete, helping a neighbor. The sun was just peeking over the barn when I heard little bootsteps thumping down the hallway. "Morning, Pete," I said as Sodak Pete came shuffling into the kitchen. Hair was sticking out under his straw hat like he just woke up, kind of looked like a haystack. "Morning," he yawned, still rubbing his eyes. Millie trotted in right behind him. She was wide awake and ready for the day. Matty was already sitting at the table with his coffee, a big old ranch map spread out in front of him on the table. "Looks like it's a cutter kind of day, Pete," he said, tapping at a field with his finger. "But first, we better get that hay cutter greased and ready to roll." Pete grabbed a biscuit, he gave Millie a little bite, and he grinned. "Let's get to it." He was ready to go, and just like that, the day was underway. Out in the ranch yard, Matty rolled up his sleeves and Pete grabbed the grease gun. That hay cutter was sitting there like a big old grass-hungry beast, just waiting to be woke up. "Start with the zerks," Matty said. "Every one of them needs a good squirt." Pete nodded real serious-like and he got to work. Grease was squishing into place. Next up, blades. Matty pulled out the old ones while Pete handed him new shiny ones from a dusty old cardboard box. "These will cut cleaner than a sharp-toothed gopher," he said with a grin. With bolts tightened and zerks greased and everything double-checked, Matty stood up and he stretched. "I think she's ready." Pete gave the cutter a little pat. "Let's go make some windrows." Matty fired up the big hay cutter and she roared to life with a vroom and a whir. Pete climbed in the buddy seat, hanging onto his hat and petting Millie. They headed toward the hayfield. Dust was curling behind them on that path like a ribbon. "Just one small hayfield to cut today, Pete," he said. "Should be a short one." That hay cutter zipped through the tall grass just like a jackrabbit on a mission. Pete leaned forward, his eyes were wide. "Look at those big windrows, Matty." Long, neat, big, puffy, fresh-cut windrows stretched out behind them, sweet-smelling and just right for a balin' raider. Millie watched from a shade tree, tail wagging, keeping her eyes on her crew. They were just about done with that field when Matty's phone buzzed in his phone holster. "Hey there, Doug," he answered, putting on the speaker. It was neighbor Doug, and he sounded mighty flustered. "Matty, I'm having no luck with my tall alfalfa. Do you think you could bring that big cut over and give me a hand?" Matty looked at Pete, and Pete looked at Matty. Then they both grinned, and at the same time they said, "We're on our way." They finished the last few rounds and headed back to the ranch yard. They checked the fluids, refilled the tank, and they loaded back up. "Let's go help Doug," Matty said as Pete gave Millie a scratch behind the ears. Helping each other's part of being good neighbors and good friends. Neighbor Doug's field was thick with tall, leafy alfalfa. No wonder it was hard to cut, almost too tall for his old machine to handle. But Matty's big hay cutter, she didn't flinch. With a deep whir and a steady hum, she powered right in. "That's more like it," Matty said, keeping his eyes focused on the field. Pete leaned forward in his buddy's seat, eyes wide open. "We're really making progress." That alfalfa, though, it was stubborn, but so were they. Row by row, round by round, that cutter chewed through the tall green crop like a hungry cow at supper. Millie watched from the fence line, staying close, just in case she was needed. Pete's stomach started to grumble, and he grabbed his walkie-talkie. Click! He gave me a quick call. "Breaker, breaker, you got your ears on? Could you bring some supper to the field by Doug's place?" Of course. You bet I had my ears on. I loaded up the plates, the lemonade, and a cooler full of sandwiches the size of a saddle. Then I drove over to Doug's place, enjoying the ride with my windows down and the sun glowing across the fields. Pete waved when he saw me, and Millie came running. She thought I was bringing supper for her. We all gathered around the tailgate. Matty, Pete, Millie, and neighbor Doug too. Much obliged, Doug said between bites. Sure appreciate the help and the supper. Pete grinned. His cheeks were full of sandwich. We like helping. Before you know it, Doug, you're going to be up helping us. Matty chuckled. It's hard to beat hay cutting and a good supper. I'll tell ya, food always tastes better in the hayfield with good friends. With full bellies and fresh energy, Matty and Pete climbed right back into that cutter for a few more rounds. The sun was starting to set and the evening was cooling off. Millie, she just trotted along the edge of the field, keeping a close eye on her boys. As the boys finished up the last path of the night, they shut things down. Doug gave them a wave and a smile. Thanks again. I couldn't have done it without ya. We'll be back in the morning to finish, Matty said as he slapped the dust off of his jeans. Millie hopped into the pickup beside me and so did Pete. Millie curled up right by his boots. Back at the ranch, we all sat on the porch. Boots off, lemonade in hand, Millie was stretched out and relaxing right by Pete. We got a lot done, Matty said, leaning back with a smile. I hope Doug can sleep a little easier tonight. Pete nodded. I liked helping. That alfalfa was tall. We all smiled and agreed and just relaxed together. A breeze rustled through the oak trees. We watched the sky fade to stars and we gave thanks for hay in the windrows and for another day of working together. The good Lord sure knows how to fill a day and a heart. Thanks for riding along with us today. Sodak Pete and I hope you'll join us on our next adventure.